In light of Daft Punk's announcement this week that they're calling it a day, I thought I'd upload this video I made last year for my ClubbingTV series. It shows step by step how to recreate one of their classics, Daft Punk, and I think it demonstrates how art is about that creative spark that gives birth to something genuinely unique, because anyone can recreate this given a few bits of kit. Just watch and see how easy it is. I did it in a couple of hours, but only 2 guys did it, and they did it again and again. So this is thanks to Daft Punk for being an inspiration to a generation of electronic musicians. You will be missed, and we can only think about all those great tracks that will now never exist. But for now, sit back and see how they put together one of their classic tracks. And before I get started, I think I'd just like to say how much fun this has been. I've just sort of spent the afternoon recreating a classic dance track on my kitchen table, and it sounds pretty good. So this is what we're aiming for. I think that's got pretty much all the parts playing in it, and that's the recreation, as we say in Liverpool. That's the jog version. As a track, it's made up of just a few parts. You've got a main drum sample, you've got a bass line, you've got the sort of main keyboard line and a little acid line, and that's pretty much it actually. So let's start off by building the intro. This morning I thought, right, how do I start off doing this, and listen to the original track. And the original track starts off with a sort of city soundscape that's taken from a sample CD. And I thought that's now become quite a famous sample of a street. So I thought, why don't I go and sample a famous street? So I went to Penny Lane in Liverpool, which, if you don't know, is quite famous from a Beatles song, so ask your parents about that. But when I got there, I sort of forgot about lockdown and there's absolutely no one there. But at the other end of the street, it's a lot busier, and you've got the barbers and you've got the bankers, just like it is in the song. But again, that was pretty empty. But eventually, after waiting around for a while with my trusty little Rode iPhone stereo microphone, a bus did go past, so I did get a sample of a bus driving past. That's the busiest it got. There was that and a couple of old ladies talking about how late the bus was, but I didn't think that really fitted with the track. And of course, with it being a city soundscape, it wouldn't be complete without some car horns in there. And that's me annoying the neighbours. So the track starts off with a sort of soundscape. And then it moves into the actual track. So let's break that down piece by piece. We've got a drum sample in there, and we've got the main keyboard line. So the drum sample, what you got to do for that, just sit there for a few hours, going through your mum's old record collection till you find something or some things that are useful. So this is the main drum sample, which I've just chopped up and stuck into Logic's own sampler, and then just played. And to go with that beat, I've added a clap as well. If you listen to their track, you can hear there's an extra clap in there. And you'll notice that I've put that through a high pass filter. You could use an EQ or anything you like really, but just to take off all the low frequencies so you get the buses driving past a lot louder. So now let's take a look at recreating that famous synth line. I've used the Korg MS-20, which is around €500. There's also a Behringer K2, which is a sort of clone of this, and that's around €300. The original was an MS-20 from the 70s, I think they used in the studio. And if you listen to this, I think it probably was the same synth because it's almost identical. So I was really quite pleased with how I managed to get that so close actually. It's a really easy sound to make if you got one of these. take a photo of the screen or go to my Patreon page, I'll upload some photos of it. But essentially it's 2 sawtooth waves, 2 octaves apart, and then playing with these filters and with the envelope you get that sort of nice wah wah sound. And then to really gritty it up, I've taken the main output and stick it through this external signal processor that you have in them, and that's got a little amplifier here, and that gives it this added sort of bit of grit of distortion. Without that, it sounds a little bit more tame. So take the main out, stick it through this external processor it's got, whack up the signal level. So as I increase this signal level, I get a really nice bit of distortion through this. A sort of really gritty distortion. So it's quite a difficult sound to produce on other synths actually. It really relies on having these high pass and the low pass filter on this and balancing them together. And what I find really amazing about that sound is that as soon as you hear this, you know what tune it's from and how many synth lines have you ever heard, how many synth sounds, you know, and they're sort of quite generic, lots of them, especially sounds from things like the TB303 and all its clones. But the sound from this track on the MS-20 is just really a real standout track of the last couple of decades, isn't it? And the final sound in the intro is that little hit, that little stab. And the only way to get those is again to just go through thousands of old time sample CDs, and I think I found the original hit they used from one back in the late 90s from 0G number 3 or something. But I'm pretty sure that's identical. So that, the drums and the MS-20 all go through a high pass filter at the start, so that after the first 8 beats when the drums kick in on their own without the high pass filter, they've really got some power. So and that's just the same sample as before without the filter on it, but it's got a little bit of compression and a little bit of reverb just to sort of liven it up a bit. And at the end of that break we've got a nice drum fill. And that's just this. That's beautiful laid back beat, that, isn't it? That's probably from your mum's record collection. Really like that. But they've just sped it up and used it as a fill. So again, I found the original sample, put it into Logic and put it into the sampler in there, sped it up and looped it to give this. And then next up is the bass. So I have this amazing bass by Line 6. And what it does is it models all different types of bass guitars. So you can sort of get any bass sound you want. And if you listen to the Daft Punk track, it sounds like a live bass to me. It sounds like a sample of a bass anyway. And in the manual for this, it shows you all the different sort of bass guitars that you can emulate on it. Fantastic bit of kit. Just one problem though, is that I can't actually play the bass. I've spent ages trying and no joy. And while I've been learning to play the bass, people have brought out amazing software that will do it for you. I've used this Modo bass from IK Multimedia and it's fantastic. Just like the Line 6, you've got all these different bass guitars. But I thought I'd go with a funky 70s bass, because I imagine from the record collection they've used so far, it's all quite funky. Get really nice tones from this and you can really dig into how you want it to sound with different playing styles and all the different electrics and types of strings. I've had a little play around with it and came up with this. It sounds really authentic. And I was dabbling and doing all around the world or Daft Punk, but after I found that sound on the MS-20, I thought I'd go with the funk instead. So let's just go back from that break. Sounds like it, doesn't it? And then we bring the synth line back in. almost there. So we're bringing things in and out, and then we drop it down to a bit of a break. And in that break, we bring in some TR-909 hi-hats, nice and sort of gritty again. Bring the stab in, drop the bass out, then drop the bass out, and then we bring the acid line in. And I'm using Behringer's TD3 for the acid line because it's got some built-in distortion, and I'm syncing it up with Logic. So if I just solo that. Really love that sound. It's so dirty and gritty, and you know, that distortion just sort of really gives it some oomph. But you're never going to get it to sound exactly the same as Daft Punk's. That's a route to madness, trying to match or emulate what speakers they've used, or what cabinets and what effects units and what distortion units or fuzz boxes they've used. You're never going to get it to sound exactly the same, but I think this is near enough. And for the second half of the track, we've sort of done, we've programmed almost everything, just one more small thing to go, which you might have even never noticed before. So we just start building it up again, bring the bass back in. And then we bring the synth in again. And then drop the bass out for 8 bars. And then just build it back up again and sort of make your way to the end, as it were. But if you listen carefully, at the end of the track, they also bring in a little high sound. I've no idea what it is. It's just sort of a little, so it almost sounds like Morse code at the top. And I've just used this little Korg Volca bass for this. It's a really beefy little thing, this actually. It's a bit like a 303, but with a sub-oscillator. But I'm not using it for its sound in this really. It's just filling the space. It's because it's really neat and nice and fits on the desk. Sometimes size does matter. So, all together. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, you can check it out again whenever you like on our ClubbingTV YouTube channel on the From the Studio playlist. And if you are into your synths and your drum machines, check out my YouTube channel as well, Starsky Car on YouTube. I've got a lot more in-depth and technical sort of reviews and comparisons of various synths and studio kit in general. So, see you in the next episode of From the Studio.